people get lost in their little tunnel of, man, how can my $600 a year, how can my 12 hours of volunteerism make a difference? It can't. It can't unless everybody does it.
I'm your host, Taylor Ann Carpenter, and welcome to The Talk Chamber, a production of the Greater Memphis Chamber. The Talk Chamber is the podcast for the latest on the Chamber, economic development, and all things Memphis. Our episode today is about one of the voices of Memphis. I am pleased to welcome John Carroll, founder and executive director of City Leadership, to the Talk Chamber. John, we are so glad you're here.
Glad to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
So let's get started with your story and how you're shaping the 901. John, City Leadership has been a game changer in Memphis since 2010. For our listeners who might not be familiar with City Leadership, can you share how City Leadership got its start and what drew you to this work?
Yeah, thanks so much. What we do now and what we started doing are vastly different in scale, but not different in principle. But really how we got started was the whole thought was, hey, how do we help the good guys do more good? And we believe that everything rises and falls on leadership. And so we thought, man, what if, passionate leaders who are trying to make a difference could move faster? What if they could measure their effectiveness and dial in their work easier? And that all began with just trying to help one org and then another and then another. And honestly, I was never really planning on it being my full-time job. But this work, I guess if you'd call it work, I'd call it, this passion, this interest, it's way more than a hobby, but just kind of overtook me because it's just so much fun and it means so much,
That's awesome. Now, on a personal note, what is your Memphis story? How did you end up here? What keeps you passionate about the city?
Yeah, so I'm not from Memphis. I think that sometimes that surprises people, but only because I feel like everybody. You're kind of Memphis is a city where you can be very involved and very engaged and very networked really easily. It's a very welcoming city in that way. Especially when you're trying to love on this place, a lot of doors will open up pretty quick. But I'm from Murfreesboro. Went off to college. Worked in Nashville for a while. Ended up in Dallas area for about 5 years, and moved here in Memphis to be a part of a startup that was here. And so I took on a VP role in sales and marketing, and did that for a couple of years, and joined another organization and started a company, and got really involved here. But honestly, when I moved here, I thought I'd live here for a year or two. When I started the company, and I joined these guys, I thought, yeah, this would be a great transition, or it'll grow to a place where I would move to a bigger city or some other community, because I wasn't coming here for Memphis. I was coming here for a job. And then once I got here, I just absolutely fell in love with this place. And so got really comfortable, wanted to stay here in this community. And then now I can't imagine living anywhere else. I definitely could have. But man, I'm Memphian by choice,
That's awesome. As I've said on the podcast before, I love to hear when people choose to come to Memphis and then, more importantly, choose to stay in Memphis. And, just with the work that you're doing, I would never know that you weren't a born and raised Memphian. Just the passion and excitement that you have and how you talk about our city is not something that you would put somebody who hasn't had lifelong history of being a Memphian.
Yeah, I think that's funny, though. I think what's interesting is a lot of really, I think actually if you look back on our most famous Memphians actually, aren't from, not that I'm one of the most famous Memphians, but very passionate people and in Memphis history, and people that people call great Memphians. Many times they're not from Memphis. Obviously Elvis, and but even Robert Church, who's obviously one of the most important Memphians ever in the history of the city. But even obviously, unfortunately, lost him this past weekend, but even Fred Smith is from Marks, Mississippi. And so, man, when you move here, it gets in your blood quick. And I call myself a Memphian. I introduce myself around the world as a Memphian. People ask, where I'm from. I say Memphis.
That's awesome. So city leadership's mission is to recruit, develop, and catalyze leaders. What does that mean in a nutshell?
Yeah, I think those three words all make sense to people. But I think that what we try to do is not keep those siloed. It can feel siloed in some ways, right? We definitely want to recruit more leaders here, right? And so, and we would say recruit, and we would mean the word recruit and retain. We think that Memphis leaders, homegrown leaders, are incredibly, incredibly valued to retain. We're not just trying to move in more people into the city. And so actively recruiting, we're recruiting our own and inviting other people to be a part of it. But really what we say in the recruiting part is we really think about these kind of college students, post-college, kind of this 20-something. Most people move to new cities before the age of 28, kind of between 21 and 28. So that's really the recruiting time. The development time is really kind of after 28, really like 28 to maybe 48 is where we're really trying to develop leaders. And really in that, we're trying to develop their leadership, develop, their mission for the full capacity of their leadership. Oftentimes, like maybe their leadership is bigger than, their budget or their infrastructure that they're around. And so the development doesn't have to be just that leader. It's developed the ecosystem around them in that space. But really when we go from, you can add more leaders, you can add more skills, but you really go to multiplication table when you get to catalytic work. And catalytic is where we get these leaders, these organizations, these recruits to grow and work together. And that's where things get really, really efficient and really, really impactful. And so, we say recruit, develop, catalyze, but the other half of our mission title is so Memphis can become a growing, improving, and more loving city. And I think that that's really our mission. Our strategy is to recruit, develop, catalyze. Our mission is to do whatever it takes for this place to grow numerically and in health and in, all sorts of ways, right? And for it to improve in every single way possible. And then obviously for it to become a more loving place. It's not that this place isn't loving. It's just that where would you ever not want more love, right? And so and I think that love is kindness, that love is care, that love is compassion, that love is obviously less crime, all sorts of those kinds of things. But we have to improve and grow in some other ways to be able to make that happen.
That's awesome. Can you say that one more time? Your mission is to grow?
Yeah. So we would say is that city leadership exists to recruit, develop, and catalyze leaders to create a growing, improving, and more loving Memphis.
Growing, improving, and loving Memphis.
Yeah, more loving. Yeah,
That's
more
awesome.
loving. It's already loving.
Yeah.
But more loving. Yeah.
I love that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I
thanks.
love that.
Appreciate that.
So another thing you guys often say is better leaders make a better city. Can you kind of elaborate on that and just explain what that means to you?
Yeah, we believe everything rises and falls on leadership. Leaders make leaders better. A growing leader creates a growing environment in that space. And so, it just like anything else, right? Like, a faster wide receivers make an offense better. A stronger offensive line, makes the running game better, or however that works, right? You know what I'm saying? And so a stronger quarterback arm can make the passes better. And so a growing leader, right? Creates to a growth environment in this space. And so we want to have better leaders everywhere, and we want people to reach their best in that space. And so we truly believe, and we know actually, right, is that there are tens of thousands of Memphians that are, would actually volunteer or, get involved or mentor or that kind of stuff. And really what's sitting between them and them doing that is leadership, organizing and making that possible for them to do in a way that unlocks that piece of the puzzle, right? There is money out there, right? There's there's generosity. In fact, there's over $2 billion already sitting in donor advised funds in Memphis. That generosity has already happened. People have already been generous. They've at least been tax averting, generous, but they've already been generous. But we don't have $2 billion of leadership to activate those dollars. And so we need more leaders to activate the generosity that people want to be. People want to be generous. They want to be volunteering. They want to matter. They want to make a difference in people's lives. They need to be led. And the better leaders that we have, the best will come out of each person. Not everybody's meant to be a leader, and that's totally okay, right? But everybody needs to be led and led well. And so in every facet, whether it's for-profit, nonprofit, government, in our community, we need great leaders everywhere. And we need great leaders to be engaged right now.
Definitely. Right now is no better time. They say no better time than this.
Right. Yeah.
And so I just think that if, those people out there that have that desire to lead and grow in their leadership skills and abilities, now's the time.
Yeah. Memphis is the place.
For sure. So city leadership is known for several campaigns, including Choose901, Teach901, and Serve901. Could you break down each of these campaigns and how they're making a difference in Memphis?
Yeah, so I think the big thing is that, obviously a lot of people know what Choose901 is, and they've never heard of city leadership. That's totally by design. That's totally okay. If you've never heard of city leadership before, or if you even maybe have heard of me before, but you've definitely probably heard of Choose901 before. And a lot of people think of that it's its own organization and that kind of stuff. But those things you just said, Choose901, Teach901, Serve901. We also have Give901, Choose901 alumni. Those are all campaigns. Those are all strategies of the work that we do. And they're really pieces of catalytic effort. They're usually branded campaigns to get multiple organizations to kind of work together. And so Choose901 began as a way to recruit and retain college graduates for missional organizations here that were serving on the front line of education, health and welfare, our service organizations that were often looking for, AmeriCorps members or 1 year residents to 4 year residencies in those different kind of phases. And so we started that as a collaborative recruiting, marketing campaign. And what happened is that to answer that question, we knew that there were plenty, and there still are, of college students who want to, invest a season of their life right after college in some meaningful way to them. And we knew that there was more than enough to meet the needs of Memphis. What we had to do is we had to let them know that this specific program existed. It's kind of a race to do that. And then once they know that program existed, they have to know, will I enjoy investing my life in that city? And so Choose901, we were promoting that, but then surrounding that with, hey, and check out this restaurant or this music scene or these parks or, professional sports or the Orpheum or all these different kinds of things. The art scene, outdoor recreation is a really big deal, for 20-somethings and really everybody. But and so we were trying to do that, and we're trying to show how they would enjoy this city. And what really ended up happening is that while we were targeting college graduates, Memphians started getting really passionate about they were like, we were meeting a need that we weren't even really thinking about. It was that, there's a lot of people that are trying to find out that information for themselves. And so Memphians got really passionate about kind of relying on us to guide them on how to invest and enjoy their lives. And so what we meant to just do with 20-somethings kind of grew out broad in all that sort of way. And as we were recruiting those people, we got asked to help recruit and retain teachers, and that's what began the Teach901 program. And actually began before all this. It used to be called Memphis Service Experiences. Back when I was in the for-profit world, I was hosting college groups in town for spring break. Instead of going on spring break, I'd take off work and I would host in groups to serve here in the city and just give back. And it was something that I did when I was in college. It was something that I really enjoyed. And I thought, man, that'd be a great way to be able to give back because, had some friends who were in the college, world. And so I was like, hey, can I get these college students to come to town and experience the city and be able to serve and make a difference? And so we rebranded it after we created Choose901 to Serve901. But we've got a 114 person bunkhouse over in Midtown, over by Rhodes, and we bring in hundreds. We've brought in 20-something thousand college students over the years to do, dozens of hours of volunteer work over a week. They have to hear a history of Memphis talk. They have to go to the National Civil Rights Museum. Most of them end up over at Stax. They all end up having a lot of barbecue. But they definitely get to hear a pitch on why they should invest, a summer as an internship or move here after college. And so it was funny. I was speaking at an event on Friday, and one of the ladies raised her hand, and she was like, "I was on a Serve 901 trip, and I'm here now serving in Memphis because I came on a Serve 901 trip. I heard about this opportunity. I was just like, oh man, it's so awesome." You know what I'm saying? And so it just happens over and over again. But those are different campaigns to meet different needs, and they've been a lot of fun. We've had some other campaigns in the past. We got some other ideas we'd love to do, but these are really unique things that really make a difference in our city.
That's so cool that you even just recently experienced the opportunity of somebody who worked with you, who did this program and is now back in Memphis. And
they were just here in March on a spring break trip, and now they live in Memphis, and now they're serving here. Right?
That's incredible.
They had never been to Memphis before. They'd never served. They never, nobody in their family had ever been to Memphis before. But what they did is they came here. They made a meaningful difference. This place meant something to them, and so then it was like, well, I can go anywhere this summer, but why would I not go to this place I care about? And I think that can happen over and over and over again. It will happen over and over again as long as we keep presenting the opportunity. Worst case scenario is this young lady comes here, has a great time, and volunteers for 30 or 40 hours in a week and makes a difference and goes back and never lives here, but thinks the rest of her life Memphis is a special place, and I was glad I got a special week there. But then the bonus is now she lives here. And now she's making a difference every single day here. And so pretty cool to see that happen. The Teach 901 stuff is really, really compelling. We've got, we don't have enough teachers in our country. It's not a Memphis issue. There's not enough people actually even majoring in education right now to meet the demand of where teachers are kind of falling. So there's not enough people graduating in a 100-mile radius of Memphis every year with an education degree just to backfill the number of people retiring every year, right? And that's if you had 100% retention of a 100-mile radius of every college. So we have to retain teachers as long as we possibly can. It makes a huge difference if the average teacher tenure is 10 or 11 years versus 6 or 7 like it was when we started. And so our teacher retention now is over 10, which is huge, which it really, really is meaningful for our community. But it also, this whole program provides free job marketing for all these school systems, creates one hub for all teachers to be able to go to and be able to resource, and really turns this into making it the most accessible, easy way for a teacher to be able to do it. The reality is every city in the country is competing for a 7th grade science teacher. And whoever makes them the easiest for them to come there and makes it the clearest for what they're committing to is more likely to get that person. And so we say in the for-profit marketing world all the time, I always say is that, a confused mind says no. And so part of our job with Teach 901 is to eliminate the confusion for a teacher who has a bunch of different options. It's not like there's just one school system. There's like 90 school systems, in Shelby County. And so a lot of different options, a lot of different things. They all need 7th grade science teachers. And so or whatever it is. And so we got to make that really clear, stand them up side by side, and then really help those groups trust each other. Or we'll end up with a bunch of really combative, relational, robbing Peter to pay Paul, stealing teachers back and forth from people instead of really getting an educator to be in their best space, the best environment that they can really thrive and continue to grow here in Memphis.
That's awesome. Our teachers are so important to any thriving community, having those good quality teachers who are there to educate the future leaders.
Yeah, we always say teachers are heroes, just like policemen, firemen, nurses, obviously our military. But all those things have uniforms. You walk into a coffee shop and a table of firemen and a policeman, table of firemen over here, a policeman's at the thing, maybe a medical person's in their scrubs. You can see all those people and you can be like, oh, thank you for your service. So kind of, hey, I want to buy this, officer's coffee, yada, yada, yada. The other 18 people could all be teachers, but they're like these undercover superheroes in our community that very rarely do you even know that there are amongst you. But it's actually the largest single occupation in our whole county. Over 15,000 people get up and educate for a living every single day, right? There's no other occupation that's as big as that. And so like these people are the lifeblood of not only our future, but our day-to-day economy. And so we really, really need to make sure that we are honoring them, supporting them, and building in around them.
I can't agree more. John, I want to home in on Choose901. It's a campaign pretty much everyone in the city knows about. We've discussed this a little bit. It's fun, it's fresh, but it's still informative and helpful, and so many Memphians rely on it. It's positive and is truly one of the voices of Memphis, and it really is helping shape that Memphis narrative. Do you have any success stories you can share with us that show how it's convincing people to plant their roots in 901?
Yeah, I think we very early on, our whole measurement was, are the programs that we're helping actually have enough, quantity and quality of applications to be able to fill their stuff, right? And so like the programs that we were working with, 10, 11, 12 programs or whatever that first year, Memphis Teacher Residency, Teach for America, AmeriCorps, Service Over Self, Downline, Youth Villages, and others. Collectively, they had like 400 open positions, funded, ready for 1 up to 4 year commitments here, ready to go. And the year before, right? I mean, they were wrestling with, either they had 20 funded spots. They had 13 applications. They accepted 11, 9 showed up. And so we missed out on 11 college graduates coming here. Or, you'd have a program that had 50 funded spots and they had 200 applications, but only 30 were really qualified. And they didn't know how to communicate their needs really clearly and weren't getting out broad enough into that space. And so, we went with 20 people who didn't make a 4-year commitment here, even though the money was already there. And so within a year, everything was filled, and then filled again, and then more than enough people. And some of these programs grew because the demand grew for their program into this space. And over again, we didn't have to go so far upstream to convince a college graduate that they should shun away from whatever they were planning on doing. Hey, don't go be an accountant or an engineer or whatever. Change your life, come invest, whatever. It's just the fact that there are lots and lots of people who would prefer to, they've called it a gap year or kind of whatever, but they don't want to enter the workforce directly for whatever reason, or they're just really interested in using their skills to make a difference, or they'd like to get involved in education, but it's too late for them to change their major and they don't have an education degree. And there's so many weird rules about, I can have a degree in mathematics, but I can't teach math because I don't have an education space, right? And so, so those programs really filled in, really easily. But I think the real case of it now is that, we didn't launch it to be a campaign for Memphians to express their passion for Memphis. But when you end up with 450,000 unique devices in Shelby County alone on your website, on a regular basis, looking for these kinds of things, when you end up, I think we're somewhere in the 150,000 T-shirts, been purchased, for people to be able to express this kind of stuff. When we started T-shirts, the only place to get a T-shirt was like the FedEx Forum, Tiger Bookstore, and like the airport, or like, that one store, on Beale Street, right? And so like now you can get them everywhere, which is awesome. Like I wish there were 50 more great places. Like I love that all the different other companies that have them and all that kind of stuff. But like when we started, it was just like people were like, it was like a pent up thing. Like nobody had a way to express it and kind of do that kind of stuff. And then when you become the most used hashtag, in the history of anything associated with Memphis since the history of hashtags, you're just like, wow, like that's, and it's not even close. I mean, it's like, I think you add up the next 3 and then you get, you almost get to what people have used Choose901 for historically across all the different platforms. And so you just realize that you're resonating and all that kind of stuff. And then our people resonate from 12 years old to 82 years old. You come to one of our events or come to one of our markets, and it is astounding that you'll see people that are, 22 and they look it and they act it and they whatever, and they're dancing right next to a 72-year-old. You know what I'm saying? And they maybe have never even met till that moment, and they don't have anything other in common other than the fact that they love that they're a Memphian and that they have a way to express that here. And so there's a bunch of different ways to get specific. But I think, being on this side of it, 15 years later, you're kind of like, wow. I think the big thing that I want people to realize, though, is that we didn't really do anything. All we really did was just put a spotlight on or give a megaphone to the Memphis that already was. The reality is that the best things about Memphis don't get those two things. They didn't back then. They don't often now, even with all the effort that's going into it. One of the things is that, people are always like, golly, I don't hear enough good news about Memphis. In our office right now, we probably have to pick between 80 to 100 stories a week for just the ones that we share about. We don't have enough bandwidth. We don't make any more money talking about these things. It costs us money to be professional and share the good news of Memphis. The hardest part about our job is picking what good news to share. I always say, people want to know more good news. Great. Fund the organizations that are trying to get it out there, right? We're trying to get out there as fast and as efficiently and as high quantity and quality as possible. But we need help even just getting more of that out there, right? And so, and we could share way more good news. There's way more good news out there happening. But the reality is that good news swims upstream and bad news comes downstream, and it just doesn't matter, right? It just doesn't matter, you being in that space. And that's true of every place, every city, every whatever, right? I can guarantee you that I'm just going to pick some place, Denver, right? There are a lot of good things going on in Denver. I don't know any of them, right? What I can tell you is I can tell you that about probably 2 or 3 mass shootings that have happened in Denver in the last 5 years. I could probably tell you a lot of details about that. I doubt Denver wants to be known for that, right? You know what I'm saying? I know more about that than I do any of the thousands of awesome things about that city, right? Mm-hmm. Way more. And I don't know anything about Denver, except I just know about those bad things came to me, right? You know what I'm saying? Whatever. And it's really, really hard for the good news of Denver to get to me. I assume that's a cool place to live. I assume it's a safe place to live. I assume it's a fun place to live, all that kind of stuff. But the things I know most about it are its worst things. And that's just the reality of everywhere, every single place, anywhere. It's crazy.
Thank you for bringing that up, because it really is. It doesn't matter where you live, what city, what part of the state, or even part of the country you live in. There's good and bad to every city, and a lot of times we're hearing more of the bad. So thank you for bringing that up and just sharing, because there is so much good news around here, and a lot of people don't realize it.
Well, the reality, 99.5% of humans in the world are awesome. You know what I'm saying? And so, and 0.5% of the world define all the bad stuff and make everything, bad or good or whatever, all that kind of stuff. But, we all can remember, in basketball, we all can remember the shot that goes in at the buzzer. You know what I'm saying? But when you lose a game, when Grizzlies lose a game, we always reflect, golly, if we wouldn't have turned the ball over here and if we wouldn't have shot that dumb 3 in the second quarter, what? Or we wouldn't have been close if we didn't make those 3 threes in the third quarter, or if we didn't steal the ball twice in the fourth quarter, right? Your brain just goes to what you could have fixed, what you could have done better. And I think the reality is that humans are fixers. We desire to be fixers. We're designed to work. We're designed to solve problems. And so when something goes bad, our brain doesn't want that to exist. That's okay. You know what that's called? It's called caring.
Right.
caring is uniquely human in such a wonderful, beautiful way. And it's the fuel that we use to actually make a difference. And so, like, if we were completely apathetic, which, I think there are definitely people here, there, everywhere, in every city about every single thing that are apathetic, right? But if we were apathetic, I would be really worried about the city. But honestly, even when I hear people, complaining about this city or complaining about anything just in general, right? What I hear is care that doesn't know where to go next, doesn't know what to do, right? And there's a difference. You can hear people griping. Griping's a different deal. But when you hear people talking about some of the bad things, like what I hear is like they care so much. When I want to assume that they care so much that they're talking about it. And what they need to be is guided on how can they use their gift to make a difference. It's overwhelming. No one single human can make a complete difference for any major community or any whatever, right? And so if I'm in New York, I wouldn't hear about a crime and think you don't even talk about it as much because you're like, what would I ever do? You complain about it totally different because you're like, well, it's impossible. It's New York, right? Like the scale is just, how do you cure something for 10 million people? The beauty of Memphis, the reason why people care so much is they're like, golly, if we just got organized, if we just got really passionate, if we got really focused, if we all did something, anything's possible. Nobody's possible. No single person's possible to do everything. But if a lot of us really got focused, we could do anything. And that's really where the care comes, is like what they're saying. And so we got to figure out how we respond to that in a positive way and really angle that and really just, not challenge people in an aggressive way, but just kind of go, man, I hear you care so much. What's one way you can make a difference for one person or make a difference, like whatever, and realize that is the key to flipping this whole thing, right? We got to create a tipping point of momentum, and we got to get people activated to just making their piece of the puzzle happen,
And what do you think are those ways? How do you think that we can tackle that as a community, as individuals?
Well, I think that's different for everybody because I think their gifts are different.
Right.
Not everybody needs to do what I'm doing, not because, I'm worried about being out of a job or whatever, but I'm worried about in the strategy case, some people don't think the way I do or problem solve the way I do or ideate the way I do. But I could never, I don't have enough money to fund problems, right? To be more I don't have millions of dollars to be able to go fund something. So I could never be as generous as somebody is financially. I got 5 kids. I've got a full-time job. I've got a spouse. I'm in the busiest season of your life, I think, is your 40s when you're in a first world country. And I'm in the height of it. I don't have time to volunteer regularly. I did in the past, earlier in my career, right? I had a couple of mentees and they were at my house every day, and I was actually going to a school once a week and having lunch with kids. I don't have time to do that right now. I've just got way too much going on. But there's people who've got way more capacity to do that, and they want to do it, and they're passionate about it. And so they should be volunteering, Obviously, we advocate a lot, and we kind of put a mass megaphone, like air attack, stuff on the news. But a lot of people could just talk more, talk positively, in that kind of space and be around it. And then sometimes it's man, as a culture in our whole country, we have moved our problems to an institutionalized space where, organizations are serving issues instead of community, community members in that space. And so people serve people as a profession. Well, how can you serve the people who serve the people as a profession, right? Let's go make your teacher lounge in your neighborhood the coolest teacher lounge in the world and make those teachers feel encouraged, right? Let's go to your local, fire department, location or police department and, make them feel unbelievably appreciated. Let's make sure that our street block has no trash on it. Let's find that neighbor and have that hard conversation around, hey, what if your yard was mowed? You know what I'm saying? And so, and those little things ripple through, right? And so, and there's 1,000 other ways, right, to get super engaged and super involved and go join a board and get into the deep well of it and that kind of stuff. But I guess to answer your question is, what do we need to do? We need to do whatever we're gifted at doing. We're a body. We're not meant to all have all the gifts of whatever. We're meant to bring different pieces of the thing. We're an orchestra. We're a symphony. And we should play our instrument the best we can. We shouldn't keep our instrument to ourselves. We shouldn't keep it cased up. And we shouldn't be, frustrated that, well, who all's listening? Well, no one's going to hear and even come if we don't start playing.
That's a wonderful analogy. And, we are a symphony if we all use our instruments. So from your perspective, what does the future of Memphis look like in the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, I really am, I'm real bullish on Memphis because a lot of people don't realize this, but and some people know and some people whatever, but there have been some massive investments in generosity over the last couple of decades from a handful or maybe less than a handful of Memphians or Memphis families. We're hundreds of millions of dollars. And when you invest in children starting at 3, 4, 5 years old, it's a long game, And right now, Memphis is starting to harvest the first fruits of decades of educational mentorship, safety program, whatever, for thousands of Memphis youth and ultimately their families and that kind of stuff. And where that's going to play out is that we are just now, for the next decade or so, going to see those children become young adults. And we've never, in the 3 decades prior to that, 70s, 80s, and 90s, when Memphis was about the exact same way, right, wherever, we weren't making that sort of intentional investment. Not everything's worked, not everything's whatever in the short run, but I think the harvest in the long run is going to be really, really interesting. And so we're engaged in that very directly. We've taken 6 schools and some of those programs. We have 450 graduates a year who become what we call Choose901 alumni. And for the first 10 years out of high school, we help them persist through their next education level, whether it be college or getting their certificate or degree. We help them pick their job, find a job, get connected, find internships, that kind of stuff, which would be great to connect with your listeners around, hey, who wants to hire this pipeline, right? I mean, these are students who've been in the thick of, the best schools in the city, serving them to help them, mentorship. They've been part of this process. They've worked so hard. Many of them are first-generation collegians, and they are a hot ticket item, right? Like they are highly desired by Atlanta and Dallas and have all sorts of options and can live anywhere in the country. And we're trying to get them to choose 901, right, and be connected into this space. And so we help them get jobs, and then we help them really get connected into the community, because what we say is that this is true of everyone. Your listeners are probably in this space where they have a lot of freedom. But these now young adults who've had a lot invested into their trajectory of life now have this thing called freedom, right? Where they're educated, they have financial freedom, they have choice, they can do whatever they want. And everybody in this space is given the option. Well, am I going to take this life and am I going to consume and criticize my community for the benefit of myself? Or am I going to create and cultivate for the benefit of others? And that's ultimately what we try to traject, is that Choose901 lifestyle. We've have 3,000 alumni now. And those just represent a microcosm of a lot of other people who are really passionate about this place. And I think that if we can that group will continue to grow. We'll have 5,000 by 2030. If we can continue to invest in them and continue to, pass the baton of this city to this group of young adults, I think we're going to be in a really, really great place. And in fact, statistically, I think we're going to make massive impact on, poverty levels and all sorts of things. And so And it's a major economic development play, and people don't even realize that that's coming. And I think the best things about Memphis continue to sit behind the curtain. And so, yeah, I'm really pumped about Memphis because I'm on the other side of the curtain. I know the next act. I've been helping those leaders get prepared for their time on stage. And I know what performance is coming next. I just hope that the current leadership and community is ready to encourage, embrace, cheer on, welcome, pass the baton, in a way that actually sets them up, for more. And I think how you do that is we need the current leadership to go get involved in the pipeline now. Not everybody wants to go, mentor 25-year-olds, but some people, that's all they want to do. Other people are going, golly, that's not my gift set, but man, I could go do sight words with a second grader, or go have lunch with a middle schooler, or go take a field trip with some high schoolers, or go, create exposure for my career, with some young adults, in that space, or offer an internship. And so that's all for this pipeline. We've got 4,400 kids in K through 12, 3,000 alumni. And it's gonna radically impact the city. And it's not just that. We've had over 300 nonprofit clients over the past 15 years, and they're collectively engaging, tens of thousands of Memphians on a week in, week out basis. And I really trust that's going to work out. I just hope that our generosity as a community doesn't wane, and our care doesn't turn into apathy. That would be my fear for the city, is that apathy wins. I'm not worried about criticism. Criticism is just care coming out sideways.
I love that. Criticism is care coming out sideways. I think it's voices like yours and city leadership that are helping prevent that apathy from rising up. It's because the Memphians that you're spotlighting Memphians that do care and that do have that passion, and that in turn just lights up other people and makes them excited for Memphis. It makes them remember why they love Memphis. And so I think if we keep doing the work, Memphians will see that other side of the curtain.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
I also wanted to point out one more thing on that. Was you said it twice. Invest. And I want to encourage our listeners to invest, whether that's in, the employee that's right out of college that just started at your company, or you're investing in that second grader that you mentioned and helping them do sight words. It is crucial. That's how we build those leaders, and that's how we continue this momentum that we have and that we're seeing in Memphis. I just wanted to call that out one more time, because that is just, I cannot stress that enough.
Well, it's just so true. I mean, I think anything that you end up doing yourself or putting effort into, you usually have some pride around, and you can enjoy it more. And, I'm not a very crafty person. I've got some friends who work well with wood and that kind of stuff, man. And, you go over to a friend's house and he built his own dining room table, right? I mean, they just enjoy it a different sort of way. You know what I'm saying? Or, you go over to a friend's house and you realize that beautiful painting over the thing that, that she painted it, and it's awesome, right? And so she's so proud of it, and she enjoys it being in her home, and she knows what work and effort, kind of went into it. The same thing's true about our city, right? If you're not enjoying the city, my first thing would say is that I don't know if going and enjoying something else is actually the key. It's, okay, where can you go invest? Like, measure yourself on, are you actually, can you go be a mentee? Can you go volunteer somewhere? What do you need to know about and care about? Where can you go make a difference? Where can you go give? And then you'll actually enjoy it a little bit more, right? You know what I'm saying? I promise you. There are a few people who are just investing, and they're not taking time to enjoy. I've got a couple of friends there. They're usually very overworked, hyper stressed, type 3 in the Enneagram, nonprofit founders, and they're not, going to a music festival or going out to eat or watching a sunset over the Mississippi River or enjoying Shelby Farms. And I've got to tell them, I was like, hey man, like, you need a break. Like you want to go to the Orpheum? You want to go to the Grizz game? Do we need to go? Like, go to Wiseacre. What do we have to do here, right? Like you need to go enjoy this place, because you're gonna bust, right? And so like it's not sustainable. But really, when we balance it out, like I try to tell you, I'm not asking you to sell all your possessions or to like quit your job and like whatever. I'm just saying is like invest and enjoy, like, and really think about it first. Is it like, if you make a good investment, if you volunteer somewhere, if you give back, I promise you, man, it's all better, right? I mean, I always say is that, for whatever reason, I feel like the steak I make is, tastes the best, right? You know what I'm saying? My kids always think the cakes they bake taste better than anything, right? And so like, you invest a little time, invest a little energy, everything gets a little sweeter, gets a little tastier, gets a little more enjoyable.
For sure. So I have a couple more questions before we wrap up.
Yeah.
But I wanted to, this one's a little different from most of these questions, but I wanted to hear, what is your favorite thing about Memphis?
Oh my gosh. So my favorite thing about Memphis is, and I've kind of alluded to these different kind of stuff, but I grew up in a small town. There was nothing to do. Exciting Friday night was Taco Bell parking lot. You know what I'm saying? Like that was fun. I lived in some big cities and spent a lot of time in Dallas. Everything to do in Dallas, right? But man, every time I went anywhere, I felt like a complete stranger. And that was really weird for me. I'm sure people who grew up in Dallas, that's not weird. That's normalized for them. And it was weird for them to move to a small town and feel known. But I grew up in a small town where I was completely known, but I had nothing to do. We were so bored. And, but when I got to Dallas, I was like, oh man, I got everything to do. But I went to tons of like Mavericks games or Rangers games or go to the park or go to, concerts or different kind of things. I never once bumped into someone that I knew, right? Never once. And if you're a Memphian, you're immediately going like, wait, I can't go anywhere without bumping into someone. So when I moved to Memphis, like, Memphis, the FedEx Forum was just opening and the Orpheum was downtown and like all these parks were here and like there was all these cool restaurants and all this kind of stuff. And so like it did not feel like a small town at all. It felt like a big city. But then, I started, go to the coffee shop and I ended up seeing my neighbor, right? Or then bumping into a coworker, at the grocery store or seeing somebody go to church with at the Grizzlies game. And what I really end up finding is like, this really is big city amenities, hometown feel. I think that people say that wrong all the time. It's big city, with a small town feel. It doesn't feel, like or like a, small town kind of whatever. Like, we're not this quaint little thing, but like we have these kind of small town network kind of opportunities, community connections that are really impossible to have in Dallas, in Houston, in Denver, in LA, in Phoenix, and in all those kind of places. Like you can't have all that, in that space. But we have these amenities that are not possible in Dyersburg or even Jackson, Mississippi, or Birmingham even, right? You know what I'm saying? It's so like, we have these kind of things that make this place, opportunity, which is really, really special. And so like, I love that. Absolutely love it. I always say is that, go to Brother Juniper's if you want to drink cold coffee because people keep walking in, and you have to talk to them, right? If you're going to go to a Grizzlies game, if you want to see the tip, keep your head down. You will not make it to your seats because you'll keep running into friends and having conversations and you won't get to see the beginning of the game. And those are special qualities about a community because the fact that I'm going to be late to see the tip of an NBA franchise is possible in the same place where I know 6 people from my car to my seat. That's special.
For sure. I mean, you pretty much can't go anywhere in town without running into at least one person,
Right.
Even if it's, you're walking into the grocery store and you're watching them get into their car. Like, it's just a near miss, but I totally agree. That's one of the great things about Memphis is.
I love that thing. And there's probably other people listening, that don't, right? You know what I'm saying? But that is perfect for me, and I absolutely love it. I also love the Memphis sunset. I've, been to 4 continents. I've been all around the world. I love that time of day. The Memphis sunset is as good as anywhere in the world, and it's absolutely wonderful. It's crazy beautiful. Thank you, Arkansas, for being flat. So,
So before we wrap up, I have a 2-part question here. So what is one thing you hope every Memphian takes away from city leadership's work? And then how can they get involved?
oh wow. Okay, so takeaway from our work would, I guess, I don't know if I need to take anything away. Utilize our work. Maybe I think that might be whatever. So like, obviously, we'd love for you guys to subscribe to our our emails, our social media, be engaged in that kind of stuff. I think, one of the things that I tell people all the time, like, hey, if you're seeing a lot of stuff, not negative stuff about Memphis, then you realize you're the algorithm. Like, it's not that Memphis stuff. Negative Memphis stuff is looking for you. It's because that you're clicking on that stuff. So you need to go follow positive things. Try really hard. Go find, 6 good channels, positive channels to add some stuff into it. Click it, comment it, like it. Create your own algorithm of that kind of positive stuff. So we have that kind of stuff going. I think where people could get involved is as Choose901 is aged, our population is aged of the people who look at our stuff, right? And so, like, we went after 20-somethings. We ended up with hundreds of thousands of those. And now they're 30s and 40 years old, right? Because, we're like 15 years later. And so we still have an incredible reach to this 18 to 28-year-old market. But we have these 28 to 48 years old and a lot of people who are above that that are highly engaged. I think, 150,000 people that are 55 and up, in our staff. And so I would say is for those people, they don't need to be convinced to move to Memphis. Obviously, they live here. They do need to choose Memphis every day. You know what I'm saying? And so the normal way to get involved in city leadership is just to wake up and choose Memphis, right? Like positively choose it, go out and do it. But we need people to get involved in what we're doing. We started a program called Give 901. And Give 901, we challenge everybody to give 1 hour of pay, 1 hour of time. It's meant to be real equal kind of calling card for people. It's no way meant to be all of someone's generosity or all of their volunteerism. But it's just saying, it's like, hey, like, this is one step you can make to make a difference here, right? And it's something that can be equal because time is the real equality factor between every single human. And so, if I make $15 an hour sweeping a warehouse, give $15 a month, right? If you make $45 an hour as a senior accountant over at AutoZone, give $45 a month, right? Give something. You can give whatever you want. A lot of our donors give more than that, but give 1 hour of pay. And what if 10,000, 15,000, 50,000 Memphians just all chipped in 1 hour of pay towards this pipeline of future Memphians that were leaders into this space? And then give 1 hour of volunteerism, right? And so that may look different to different people. It may not be 1 hour a month. It might be, 10 hours on a Saturday, you know what I'm saying? Sometime to paint a building. It could be that you're actually volunteering every single week. But if we just start thinking about where can I give an hour back and start making a difference? And I know it doesn't, if people get lost in their little tunnel of, man, how can my $600 a year, how can my 12 hours of volunteerism make a difference? It can't. It can't unless everybody does it. But that is something so simple that everybody could do. So why not? The worst case scenario is that you make a little difference and you have a little tax write-off. That's it, right? And so go check out Give 901. We offer that to individuals, but we also offer it as a corporate partnership. And so we have businesses all over, and we've got a whole piece of it. So we come in and we help you activate your company. So many companies say they're about Memphis, they want to get about Memphis, but they don't have the staff, the time to organize it. We can actually organize your staff volunteerism, your staff making a difference. We bring in all sorts of stuff. We curtail volunteer projects for that, and we create activations for your own staff. We can do payroll deduction giving for people. We make it really simple, no high pressure. And then we also activate your company's philanthropy, your scholarships, those kind of things. We help maximize it. And from a business perspective, what we call it is ROG. All of your listeners here are going to know what ROI means, right? Return on investment. But we try to maximize ROG, return on generosity. And we believe is that any generosity invested with us, we want to provide the maximum impact, the maximum return for today and all the tomorrows of Memphis.
John, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to come here and to just share your passion for Memphis and how you're making Memphis greater each and every day.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Talk Chamber. We're really glad you're here. Let me ask you, where can you make a difference in our community? I'll tell you where to start. Get involved with the future generations of Memphis. Invest, enjoy, and choose 901. If you liked this episode or learned a valuable piece of information, share this episode with a friend or a few. Subscribe to The Talk Chamber to keep up with the latest on the Chamber, economic development, and all things Memphis. Follow us on social media at Memphis Chamber, and we'll see you next time.